Good morning, children. It's nice to see you all back once again through this virtual class. Well, we are all in the beginning of a new month. I thank and praise God for giving us this new month, and I hope He will protect us and guard us from all the challenges which we have to face during the course of this month. Well, in the last month, we have successfully completed unit number 1, where we have completed all the segments in that particular unit. And now we move on to unit number 2. And today we are going to start the second unit with the prose lesson. The prose lesson, which has been given in unit number 2, is The Night the Ghost Got In, written by James Grover Thurber, is the author of this lesson. The title, The Night the Ghost Got In. So before we start the lesson, let's learn a little bit about the author of this lesson. So I request all of you to take page number 30 and to learn a little bit about the author. We'll move on to the next page. Let's take page number, I think 34. You can see a small notes has been given about the author. You can see the picture of James Grover Thurber. He was an American cartoonist, author, humorist, journalist, playwright, and celebrated wit. So he was a great writer of all types. He was best known for his cartoons and short stories, published mainly in the New Yorker magazine, such as The Catbird Seat, and collected in his numerous books. He was one of the most popular humorists of his time, as he celebrated the comic frustrations and eccentricities of ordinary people. So generally he is known for his humorous collection, and also for doing cartoons, and also is a very good humorous story writer. So that is the tag we give for this author. And now we move on to the beginning of the lesson. As mentioned about the author, a very humorous writer. Even the lesson which has been assigned for you is a short story. In fact, I can say it is a humorous short story which has been given for you. So you can take page number 30 if you have the textbook, or if you don't have the textbook, I had already given you the link, the textbook link for English, and I think you can open that and you can find the same page now, which you can see on the screen. So I think now let me start the lesson. So, the night the ghost got in. There are a different kind of people, those who have faith in or believe in ghosts, and some don't believe in ghosts. But for those who have belief in ghosts, or sometimes we might have fear of some supernatural elements as well. So, this story is about the boys in the house, the family, who feared the presence of ghost on that particular day. And what happens in the climax is what is very important in this story, whether that was a ghost or something else. So that is what we are going to find at the end of the story. So the important characters in this play is the family members in the house, where there was a grandfather. He used to live in the attic of the house. Attic, in the house at the roof, at the top roof, there will be a small room at the top roof. There people used to stay. So the grandfather was staying in the attic, and beneath there were some rooms upstairs, just below the ground, ground floor. In the upstairs, some rooms were there, and at the top, of course, in the attic, grandfather was there. On that particular day, a mother was sleeping in a room, and two brothers were in the house, and another brother and their father, they have gone somewhere outside for an outside visit. They have gone. So the people who are present in the house are the mother, the two children, and the grandfather at the top at the attic. So suddenly they find some footsteps in the downstairs beneath, and who made those footsteps, that's what we're going to find. But initially the children suspect it was the ghost, and later the mother comes to find out this, and she calls the police, and big confusion will happen in the house unless this incident happens throughout the night, and in the next morning they happen to find the truth. So what happened during the course of that night? And finally, the end is very important. The climax. What happened in the end? That's what we're going to learn in this story. I think it's time for us to start the story. In the textbook, you can see, some words are given in red color, isn't it? While you read the lesson, for those particular words, the meaning is given at the back of the book. So you can note the meaning in the glossary column at the back. So other words, no, other new words which you come across, for such words, I will give the meaning. So you can take a notebook with you and you can write the words and the meaning which I dictate, no, while I'm taking class here. For the other words, no, which are given at the glossary, you needn't write because it's already given in the textbook. If you just refer, it is fine. Okay, now let's move on to the lesson. The ghost that got into our house. Now, first, this is written by James Grover Thurber. He says, imagination of odd things always leads to absolute humor. Read the lesson and enjoy the narrator's experience with his grandfather, who creates chaos and laughter with his imaginative stories. So, we are going to enjoy along with them the kind of confusions which were created by the grandfather, which brought a big confusion in the family. So, we are going to enjoy this story and we are also going to join with them and laugh. Okay. The first paragraph. The ghost that got into our house on the night of November 17, 1915, so more than 100 years before this incident happened, raised such a hullabaloo of misunderstandings that I'm sorry I didn't just let it keep on walking and go to bed. Its advent caused my mother to throw a shoe through a window of the house next door and ended up with my grandfather shooting a patrolman. I'm sorry, therefore, as I have said, that I ever paid any attention to the footsteps. So this incident happened in 1915 on November 17. This created a big hollow. That is a kind of sound we make, isn't it? Loud noise made up of excitement. So this incident happened. So finally, because of this, what happened? The mother had to throw a shoe through the window to the next house, to the opposite house, to ask for help, and she has to break the window on the other side. And the grandfather happened to shoot the patrolman, the policeman, because at the end, no, they suspect a burglar, a thief has come to the house, and they'll call the police. And finally, the grandfather has to shoot one policeman as well. Such a confusion happened in their house. How it started, how all this incident started, we'll see. They began about, this is the second paragraph, they began about a quarter past 1 o'clock in the morning. Quarter past 1 o'clock means 1:15 in the morning, in the midnight you can say, 1:15 a.m. A rhythmic, quick, cadenced walking around the dining table. Cadenced here means sequence of sounds, continuous walking sounds. Walking around the dining room table. So down in the dining room table, they can hear some sound rhythmically, rhythmically the sound was going. My mother was asleep in one room upstairs. Her mother was sleeping in the upstairs. My brother, he had one brother. His brother's name was Herman. You can underline and remember the brother's name, Herman. So the brother was sleeping in another room and grandfather was in the attic. Attic, I told you already, a small room at the roof, okay, almost at the top attic. Grandfather was in the attic. In the old walnut bed, walnut is considered to be somewhat a symbol of intelligence. So in such a bed, the grandfather was sleeping. So people who feel they are very smart and intelligent, they used to get this walnut bed. Some believe that once they sleep in that bed, they become more intelligent. So grandfather was sleeping there. The author, he had just stepped out of the bathtub. He was taking bath in the middle of the night at 1:15. Bathtub and was busily rubbing myself with a towel when I heard the steps. He was rubbing himself with the towel in the bathtub, and he could hear all these footsteps coming from the dining room, which was beneath. The light from the bathroom shone down the back steps. The light which was falling from the bathroom was falling on the steps down, which dropped directly into the dining room. The light which was coming from the bathroom, when you opened the bathroom, the light was falling directly onto the step, and the light which was falling on the steps made a little bit of the dining table to be visible. I could see the faint shine of plates on the plate rail. The plate rail, the place where all the plates are kept, he could see the shining of the plates. I couldn't see the table, but the dining table was not visible. The steps kept going round and round the table, but the steps happened to go round and round the table. Only the footsteps could be heard, but nothing was visible. At regular intervals, a board creaked. A board creak means like something was, they were opening a cupboard or something like that. The board was a creaking sound. Like that, a creaking sound could be heard. Creaked, and now we go to the next side. When it was trod upon, when it was walked upon. I supposed at first that it was my father or my brother Roy. So one brother's name was Herman. He had another brother. His name was Roy. And the beginning he thought it could be his father or his brother, another brother, who had gone to Indianapolis. They had gone to a place named Indianapolis, but were expected home at any time. They were expecting their father and his brother to come at that time. So initially, the author thought it could be his father and another brother, Roy. I suspected next that it was a burglar. Then, when he understood that it was not his father and his brother, then he suspected that it was a burglar, a thief. It did not enter my mind until later that it was a ghost. Initially, it didn't come to his mind that it could be a ghost. The second thought, when he thought it was not his brother or his father, the thought which came to his mind was it could be a burglar, a thief. It never occurred to his mind that it could be a ghost. After the walking had gone on for perhaps 3 minutes, 3 minutes continuously, that walking was going around the room. I tiptoed to the Herman's, tiptoed, just to tiptoed, walking with the toes alone, slowly without making noise. I tiptoed to Herman's room. He went to his brother Herman's room where he was sleeping. Shh, I hissed. He went to him and said, "Shh, keep quiet in the dark." He didn't wake him. He didn't put on the light. In the dark, he was shook. He shook him. Actually, he was only wearing a towel round him. Directly from the bathroom, he went. The brother, oh, he said, "Hey, what?" In the low, hopeless tone of a despondent beacon. He always half suspected that something would get him in the night. He was shocked now when somebody came the middle of the night and touched him and said, "Shh, don't make any noise." Because he was of a character where he always felt something bad will happen. So he was already, you can say, already he was a little bit scared of many things around him. Then this brother told who he was. I told him who I was. "There is something downstairs," I said. Then he told his brother, "There is something downstairs." He got up and followed me to the head of the back staircase. He came with him to the staircase. At the top, head means at the top of the staircase. Both the author and his brother, Herman, both came there. The steps had ceased. Suddenly, the steps had ceased, means stopped. They couldn't hear any sound. Herman looked at me in some alarm. With some shocking expression, Herman, his brother, looked at him. I had only the bath towel around my waist. He wanted to go back to bed. I gripped his arm. He was a little bit scared and he wanted to go to his bed immediately. But I gripped his arm. Just he held his arm tightly. "Hey, don't go. Wait, man." Then he told his brother, "There is something down there," I said. He told his brother, "Hey, there is something down there." Instantly, the steps began again. Once again, the steps could be heard now. It stopped for some time. Again, the sound started to come now. Instantly, the steps began again, circling the dining room table like a man running. Like tuck, 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 like that it was going. The same sound, again it's going in a circling sound towards and started up the stairs towards us heavily two at a time. And suddenly it looked like the footsteps were coming across the stairs towards them. The lights still shone palely down the stairs, but the light was still falling on the stairs through the bathroom. We saw nothing coming. They waited anxiously. What is that footstep coming from? But they could not hear anything, but they didn't see anything. The light still shone palely down the stairs. We saw nothing coming. We only heard the steps. Herman rushed to his room and slammed the door. Hearing that footsteps, everything, Herman ran inside his room and closed the door. I slammed shut the door at the stairs top and held my knee against it. What he did was Herman went inside his room. What our author did was, for the staircase there was a door. For that there was no lock. So he thought somebody, maybe a burglar, a thief might come inside. He just held his hands towards that door and he was pushing it tight that nobody can push it. He was holding like that and standing for some time. Now we will move on to the next page, page number 31. After a long time, he waited like that for such a long time, but nobody came. After a long time, I slowly opened it again. He opened the door of the stair, the door which was at the top of the stair. There was nothing there. There was no sound. There was no sound. There was nothing there. None of us ever heard the ghost again. No, that sound didn't come. It ceased. It stopped suddenly. The slamming of the door, no, they were slamming the door top because the brother closed the door. He slammed, no, that is that heavy sound had aroused mother. That made the mother to get up from her sleep. She peered out of her room. Slowly she peeped out. What is that happening? Slamming sound, no big. What are they doing? Then she came out of her room and said, "What on earth are you boys doing? Huh? What are you doing in the middle of the night at 1:15 or 1:30?" She demanded. Herman, he came out of his room, ventured out of his room. He came out of his room and nothing, he said gruffly, but he was in color a light green. But you can see fear, no? The color of fear in his face. What was all that running around downstairs? Then the mother asked, "What is that? Somebody is running downstairs, no? Who's that?" Said mother. So these two brothers confirmed that mother has also heard the sound which was going downstairs. Said the mother, "So she had heard the steps too. We just looked at her." Then they told, "Burglars, thieves." She shouted intuitively, the meaning here means, which is given at the back of the book, without conscious reasoning. So without consciously understanding what it is, she didn't take time to understand who could have made the noise, why. Suddenly what she tried, she became very emotional or very much anxious, no? She got scared. I tried to quieten her by starting lightly downstairs. No, the boys tried to quieten her by slowly taking her lightly downstairs. Take her down. "Come on, Herman," I said. So he told his brother, "Come on, Herman. I will stay. Come, we'll go down and see who it is. No, come on, let's go." "I will stay with mother," he said. Then to calm his mother, what the author wanted to do was wanted to go down and just confirm the mom. This is what it is, because he wanted to make his mother to come out of that anxiousness. So he wanted his brother to come with him downstairs, but the brother refused. He said, "I'll be with mother itself." She's all excited because his brother refused. Even he had his own fear. I stepped back onto the landing. So instead of going down the stairs, he returned back from the stairs. "Don't either of you go a step." Then the mother said, "Either of, no, you don't go down. Both of you don't go down," said the mother. "We'll call the police." The mother said, "The best thing is we'll call the police." Since the phone was downstairs, but where did they keep the phone? The phone was kept downstairs. I didn't see how we are going to call the police. The phone is kept downstairs and we are suspecting the thief to be in the downstairs. How are you going to call the police? Nor did I want the police, but mother made one of her quick, incomparable decision. But both the brothers were not very keen in calling the police because more than it was a burglar, they suspected could be a ghost also. So they were not with the intention of the mother to call the police. Suddenly, what did the mother do? She flung up a window. She went to her room, opened the window of her bedroom, which faced the bedroom windows of the house of a neighbor. So she went and opened the window of her room in their house, and adjacent, just opposite, they can see the bedroom window of their opposite house, and whammed it through a pane of glass across the narrow space that separated the two houses. There was a narrow space between the two houses, very small space. The windows were adjacent. Glass tingled. What she did was she took a shoe. And because she wanted to get help from the neighbor house, she took the shoe and threw it to the window pane, no? The window glass of the opposite house. Glass tinkled into the bedroom occupied by a retired engraver named Bodwell. There in that house, what happened? The window got broken. There in the house, there lived an engraver. Engraver means one who designs woods or metals. They write names or design pictures like that. So there was lived one retired engraver named Bodwell. The person's name who was living in the neighboring house was Bodwell, and his wife. They both were living. Bordwell had been for some years in rather a bad way and was subject to mild attacks. Mild attack, heart attack like that. He was having all those kinds. So he avoided himself from excitement, all this kind of anxiousness like that. And he tried to prevent. But suddenly she threw the shoe to his window. Almost everybody we knew or lived near had some kind of attacks, but most of the people who were living in that area all were having a kind of attack. That means that fear, they all were having. So all of them, they themselves were not such a strong minded, strong hearted people. So but still she threw the shoe on his window, and that awoke both Bordwell and his wife from their sleep. It was now almost 2 o'clock of a moonless night. Now the time has almost become 2 o'clock, and it was a moonless night. It was like a new moon day. There was no moon at all. Very dark. Clouds hung black and low. Very dark clouds were in the sky. Boldwell was at the window in a minute. Suddenly he came to the window in a minute and shouting, frothing a little. Frothing means that bubbles which are coming through the mouth. Shouting, frothing a little, shaking his fist. When you see when they get very tense or something, the fist will start shaking. He just came. We'll sell the house and go back to Peoria. We could hear his wife was blabbering there. We'll sell the house and go to some other place, a place named Peoria where we can live in peace. Like that, she was blah, blah, blah. She was blabbering. It was some time before mother got through to Bordwell. Then suddenly the mother started to shout to Bordwell saying, "Burglars in the house. There are thieves in my house. Her man, I hadn't dared to tell her that it was not burglars but ghosts." But the mother declared it was burglar thieves, and she shouted. But these two were suspecting it could be ghosts, so they didn't tell that opinion to her mother. For she was even more afraid of ghosts than of burglars. Why they didn't say is because already for burglars they saw the kind of shock which she showed. But she was more scared for ghosts rather than burglars. So this avoided the brothers from telling that it could be the ghost. Then Bordwell at first thought that she meant there were burglars in his house. Immediately when she shouted burglars in the house, what Bordwell thought was there were burglars in his house. That's what he thought. That finally he quietened down and called. Then later on, she made him to understand that the burglars were in her house. And finally he quietened down and called the police for us over an extension phone by his bed. So from his bed he had an extension phone, and he called the police. After he had disappeared from the window, suddenly what the mother made, as if to throw another shoe. Not because there was further need of it, but as she later explained, because the thrill of heaving a shoe through a window glass had enormously taken her fancy. I prevented her. Later on, mother wanted to take another shoe and throw it to another window and wanted to break it. Not because there was any need, there was no need of breaking the window, because she was excited. It was so nice for her to take a shoe and throw to the window and break it. She was excited. She wanted that it was want to do it because it was thrilling for her. But the boys prevented her from throwing another shoe. At the time, they were waiting for the police, and the police arrived. The police were on hand in a commendably short time. In a very short time, the police also came. Short time, a Ford sedan. They all came in a vehicle, Ford sedan vehicle, full of them. Almost two on motorcycle. Two people were coming in motorcycle, and a patrol wagon, police vehicle with about 8 in it. 8 of them. So totally 8 plus 2, 10 of them, around 10 in it, and a few reporters and few newspaper reporters also came. They began banging at our. We'll go to the next page. Banging at a front door. They came and started banging at a front door. Flashlights, from the vehicles, shot streaks of gleam up and down the wall. They were putting light, in all the places to see any thief or anybody is hiding around or in the neighboring places or in any narrow lane or something. They were putting flashlights were coming across the yard, down the walk between our house and Bordwell. In between that narrow space, between Bordwell's house and their house, they were putting flashing lights. And they were banging the front door and they said, "Open up," cried a hoarse voice. One policeman was shouting, to open up the door. "We are men from headquarters. We are the policemen. We have come from the police station. I wanted to go down and let them in, since there they were. But here the author wanted to go down and let them in." But mother wouldn't hear of it. But mother didn't, since there they were shouting. Here the author wanted to go and open, but the mother didn't allow him to go because she might have feared that there might some danger might happen to him. She just told him, "You haven't a stitch on it. See, you haven't worn any dress on you. Only you have worn only a towel on you. Don't go like that." She pointed out, "You would catch your death if you go like that. You'll catch your death. You'll be in danger. You don't go and open the door." I wound the towel around me again. Finally, the cops put their shoulders to a big, heavy front door with its thick, beveled glass and broke it in. I could hear a rending of wood and a splash of glass on the floor of the hall. They started, no, the heavy shoulder, they started to bang the door, break the glass, and somehow or the other, they could hear all the woods and the glasses broken and falling on the floor. And finally, the police opened the front door. That is, they broke the front door. Their lights played all over the living room. They were bringing flashlights and they were putting the lights in all over the living room and crisscrossed nervously in the dining room. Crisscross, no, that is intersecting lines, no, that is lines, no, going this way, like a net, no. They were crisscrossed nervously in the dining room, so they were going in different directions, nervously in the and stabbed into hallway. They're going into all the halls, shot up the front stairs, and finally up the back. In the front stairs, no, where anybody was there, they went to the back stairs. They caught me standing. So as they were coming, they caught the author standing in my towel at the top. They saw me standing with the towel at the top. A heavy policeman bounded up the steps. He climbed the steps and said, "Who are you?" he demanded. Then he said, "I live here." I said, "I belong to this house." The officer in charge reported to mother. The officer in charge, he came and spoke to the mother. "No sign of nobody, lady," he said. "No, there is no sign of anybody in the house. Must got away. What he like? I think he must have gone away. So how did he look like?" The policeman asked the mother. The mother said, "There were two or three of them," the mother said. But actually, the mother had not seen anyone. But listening to the footsteps, she guessed like that, and she said, "There were two or three of them," mother said, "whooping and carrying and slamming doors." No, they were just making a loud noise and slamming the doors. Actually, all the slamming of the doors were done by her own son, but she suspected it was the burglar. "Those funny," said the cop. "All your windows and doors are was locked on the inside tight as stick. But it's funny, no? I can see that all your windows and doors are locked very tight. How can somebody enter inside and make such noise? And how can they escape from the house also?" At the time, downstairs, we could hear the tromping of the other police. Downstairs, as one cop was, the cop was speaking to his mother, he could hear the sound of other policemen around. Here, the tromping of the other police. Police were all over the place. Doors were yanked open. All were broken and open. Drawers were yanked. Every drawer in the cupboard, everything was broken open. Windows were shot up and pulled down. Furniture fell with dull thumps. They pushed each another to find out whether in any nook and corner they are hiding. A half a dozen policemen emerged out of the darkness of the front hallway upstairs. Half a dozen, six of them came out in darkness of the front hallway upstairs. Now the six of them came upstairs now. After they finished checking all the places downstairs, they began to ransack the floor, to carry all the carpets from the floor, pulled beds away from the walls, tore cloths off hooks in the closets. No, they pulled the hooks from the closet, from the cupboard, pulled suitcases and box of shelves. They pulled all the things from the shelves to see whether anybody is hiding inside the shelves. One of them found an old zither. Now, zither is a kind of a musical instrument which is played. You can see in this picture. No? In this picture, see, this is what is a zither. So they could see a zither. One of them found an old zither that Roy had won in a pool tournament. How did they get that zither? Was his brother Roy? He won in a pool tournament, a swimming pool tournament. When he won, he was given a zither. Looky here, Joe. One police name was Joe. So another cop was looking at another cop and was telling, and his name was Joe. He said, "Looky here, Joe." He said, uh, strumming it with a big paw. The cop named Joe took it and turned it over. He just carried that zither and took it over and said, "What is it?" He asked me. "It's an old zither," he said, "no, old music instrument zither. Our guinea pig used to sleep on. Guinea pig, it will be somewhat like kind of in the shape of a rat or something like that. They are brought up in the house, no, for meat purpose. He said our guinea pig used to sleep on it. I said, it was true that a pet guinea pig we once had would never sleep anywhere except on the zither. See, one we had a pet. That pet, no, won't sleep in any other place whichever we give, but it will sleep only on the zither. We told that. But I should never have said so. But he wondered why I said so. Joe and the other cop looked at me a long time. They thought he is lying or making fun of them. What? A guinea pig will come and sleep here like that. They didn't believe that what he told was true. They put the zither back on the shelf. They put that zither back on the shelf and they were still searching in the upstairs. No sign of nothing, said the cop who had first spoken to the mother. The person who spoke to the mother first said, there's no sign of anything at all. The lady seemed hysterical. I think there's something, you're scared of the things which you have been watching. That is hysterical here means uncontrolled emotion. I think you are not able to keep your emotion. They all nodded but said nothing, just looked at me. So they said, no, I think this lady is a little bit scared about some incident. Maybe once when we get scared, no, everything looks very frightful. So like that they suspected. And they looked at the author, looked at me. In the small silence, we all heard a creaking in the attic. When they all wondered what to do next, they all heard a small sound which is coming at the top of the house, that is at the attic, at the room. And then grandfather was turning over in the bed. So far, he didn't know what happened. Suddenly, he started to hear some sounds and slowly he was turning over in bed. So he was sleeping and he just turned his position in his bed. So Joe, the police, one of the policemen asked, "What is that?" snapped Joe. 5 or 6 cops sprang for the attic door before I could intervene or explain. I realized that it would be bad if they burst in on grandfather unannounced or even announced. Before he could explain that it was the grandfather who was sleeping in the attic, the police hurried up. Almost 6 of them hurried up. No, he was going through a phase in which now why the problem with the grandfather was he always suspected that he was going through a phase in which he believed that general meets men, these are all the people of the general, of the army general group. No, he didn't like, or he felt no, it was always dangerous to have this midsmen, you can see here, midsmen, under steady hammering by Stonewall Jackson were beginning to retreat and even desert. And he always suspected that there was a big fight going on between midsmen and Stonewall Jackson. And he wondered, no, these midsmen are chased by Stonewall Jackson and they might come and hide in their house. So he always suspected, and this grandfather hated midsmen. So when I got to the attic, so before he could go, the policeman had gone to the attic. Things were pretty confused. All the things were confused. Grandfather had evidently jumped into the conclusion that the police were. So before they could say that these are all the policemen who have come to save them, grandfather came to conclusion that the police were deserters. Deserters means this army armed force, people of armed force of which team? Midsmen. He decided it was the deserters from Mid's army trying to hide away in his attic. He thought they all have come from Mid's army and they are all trying to hide in his attic. He came to a conclusion. Before the author or somebody in the house could tell that it was the cops or the police who have come to save them, the grandfather came to a conclusion like that. He bounded off the bed wearing a long flannel. Actually, he was wearing a long garment that is made up of wool. No, he was wearing a long. So with a long flannel nightgown he was wearing, over long woolen pants, a nightcap, a woolen pant he was wearing, a woolen nightgown, a nightcap, and a leather jacket around his chest he was wearing. The cops must have realized at once that the indignant white-haired old man belonged to the house. But looking at the old person sleeping and the kind of posture he was doing, the cops had come to a conclusion that it was the old man who belonged to the house. But the grandfather suspected they all were midsmen. So what did the grandfather do? Back! He started to shout. Back, ye cowardly dog! Roared grandfather. Back to the lines, you good damn lily-livered cattle! You cowards! Go out! Get out! He thought they all were midsmen. With that, he faced the officer who found the zither a flat handed smack alongside his head that sent him sprawling. He just started to attack one police cop's head, that is, the one who was commenting about the zither. He started to attack. That smack alongside his head that sent him sprawling. That zither, no, he started to attack, and that hit on his head. And suddenly, grandfather grabbed Zither's gun from its holster and let it fly. And that Zither policeman, when he started to attack his head, he happened to take the gun from his holster which they tie, over the waist. He took that gun from his holster and let it fly. The report seemed to crack the rafters. Smoke filled the attic. Smoke filled. He started to shoot the police. Luckily, it happened to hit only on the arm, or I mean on the arms, no, on the shoulder, and a huge smoke started to come in the attic. A cop cursed and shot his hand to his shoulder. Somehow we all finally got down. Somehow they convinced, and all of them came downstairs again and locked the door against the old gentleman. They all closed the door because they couldn't explain anything. Quickly, all of them came and closed the door of the grandfather's room, and they all came down. They leaving grandfather alone in the attic. He fired once or twice more in the darkness and then went back to bed. Then they all told the police, no, when they came down, they said, that was grandfather. I explained to Joe, the policeman, out of breath. He thinks you are a deserter. I will say he does, said Joe. Then Joe angrily said that, let him know that I belong to that particular army group. The cops were reluctant to leave without getting their hand on somebody besides grandfather. The cops were reluctant to, they were not willing to go because they wanted to find the real culprit. The night had been distinctively a defeat for them. The night was almost like a defeat because they couldn't find the real thief there. Furthermore, they obviously didn't like the layout. Something looked, and I can see their viewpoint phony. They began to poke into things again. They were not convinced at all. No, they started to tear many things around, tear or try to poke the wall. Or they were not convinced that they, because it was like a defeat for them. They came to find the culprit and they couldn't do it. Uh, at the time, the reporter looked at me with mingled suspicion and interest. The reporter saw him, know that I was in a little bit of suspicion and I was not clear. The reporter came and said, "Just what the hell is the real lockdown here? But what is the lowdown here? What is the real problem going on? But here, friend, tell me." Then he thought, no, to someone I should tell the truth. I decided to be frank. Let's come to the last side of this story. I wanted to be frank with him and I wanted to tell the truth what I thought. Then he told the reporter that we had ghosts, I said. He gazed at me a long time as if I were a slot machine into which he had without results dropped a coin. He gazed at me, the kind of expression I gave, it is a ghost like that. He was not accepting, and he just glared or stared at me whether something was wrong with me. Then he walked away. Then he went out of that place. The cops followed him. They were following him. The one grandfather shot holding his now bandaged arm. So the one, no, whom one policeman's arm, the grandfather had shot. So that has been bandaged, and he was also going cursing and blaspheming. He was cursing and blaspheming. Blaspheming means complaining about God itself, no? Blaspheming, telling false things. Then he was cursing and he was blaspheming like, I'm going to get my gun back from that old bird, said the Zitarkap. I'm going to get my gun back from him. No, the gun is with him. Yeah, said Joe. You and who else? I told them I would bring it to the station. How's the next? They said, you better go to the station. Tomorrow morning I'll get it from my grandfather and I'll get the gun back to you. The author said. So, and all of them left the house. What was the matter with that one policeman? Mother asked. So mother didn't fully understand what has happened. After they had gone, then because mother was not at the attic, so she didn't know that grandfather had shot the police. Then grandfather shot him, I said. Then the author said, Mom, when the police suspected grandfather was a burglar, and when he went there, but grandfather suspected that the police were medesmen, and he started to shoot, and one policeman was injured. He was a deserter. What for? She demanded, because I told her he was a deserter. Of all things, said mother, he was such a nice looking young man. How can he suspect him to be a deserter? He looks like such a nice young man. This was now the finally the climax, the conclusion is what is very important. So like that it went off, and next day morning, grandfather was fresh as a daisy and full of jokes at breakfast next morning. He came to the breakfast table and making full of jokes. We thought at first he had forgotten all about what had happened. So initially we thought he would have forgotten what happened yesterday night. Then, but he didn't forget. But he hadn't. Over his third cup of tea, he glared at Herman and me and said, "What is the idea of all them cops tarry hooting around the house last night?" He demanded. "What is that last night? All the uh, policemen, cops were coming and doing all rubbish things in our house last night," he demanded. "None of you bothered to leave a bottle of water beside my bed. Hmm? Don't see, nobody is bothered to leave a cup of water near my bed. Do you ever realize how it cost for a thirsty man to look for water in the dining room last night? How difficult, it was for an old man to go downstairs and find a cup of water. He had us there, and he had us there. Now, did you understand what happened finally? It was not the burglar or it was not the ghost. It was the grandfather who came downstairs to the dining table, and he was searching for water for such a long time because he was very thirsty. He went to this corner, that corner, he kept running here and there. He was going in search of water. But the instant which brought what kind of suspicion came to the author's mind, it could be a ghost, and in the mother's mind it could be a burglar. Thus the grandfather created all the confusion, but yet he never knew that it was he who confused everything. So that is what is the turning point of this humorous story. I hope you all enjoyed this story, and what happened in the end only makes this story more interesting. Well, children, I hope you all enjoyed this beautiful lesson. Now it's time for you all to write the summary of this lesson. Okay, I hope you will do it as early and as possible, and you will post your summary in our group. Thank you. Have a nice day.